Yo, what's good, everybody on the internet? Welcome back to Perspectives. Shout out to End of the Week for having us here. And as you may notice, I'm starting it off today because unfortunately, Mr. Littyyy Bro Flacko decided to go be a romantic and take his wife out for her birthday. So, he had to go do the things he had to go do. As a
Shout out to
res-
the pro, man.
yeah, man, it's a wise choice. As a result, I'll be walking us through this whole journey on my own. And joining me today to give his perspective on life and whatnot is Mr. JusOne from Team Hami. It is absolutely wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you, my good sir.
So normally Flacco does the whole introductory speech where he explains how the show started, which is like he did an album and whatnot. His Littyyy Bro stay. We got that mixed up in Montreal by the homeboy Merker
Word.
Miyagi. Merker's the kind of guy who don't share nothing, right? So one day I'm cruising down Facebook. I see this Littyyy Bro song get shared, and I'm like, say word, that guy never, ever, ever shares music he works on. Click on it, it's a trip. So I do an album review because back then I'm doing these album reviews. Just caught Flacco's attention a little bit. I'm like, yo, let's do the interview. We do the interview. He very much enjoyed the experience. He mentions words like therapy, and nobody asked me these questions when he does his version of this. Something about typical New Yorker that he is. He has to go put his homies onto it, and as such, we have ran through many of his homies as we've gone through it. And this is gonna be a first one in a long time where there's no Flacky here to join us on the journey, and that's all fair.
I'm sad because that's the homie. That's the homie.
Yeah, he's a wonderful person, honestly, but we're gonna make do. We're gonna handle it, and the way we like to start this off is if you, Mr. JusOne, could just kind of give us a brief introduction into who you are, but most importantly, where you start your life and a little bit where your parents are from and all that.
Oh wow. Okay. um, I'm from Syracuse, New York, upstate New York.
Say a word.
Um, my father is from Auburn, New York. My mother is from Wheatsport.
I'm not sure where Weedsport is, to be honest with you.
Yes, it's about 15, 20 minutes outside of Syracuse. Just a little small town.
Yeah, it's perfect though, because that sets the context right for this question I'm gonna get into. So we know you're also a rapper. You're involved in a bunch of stuff in life right now, and so what we like to do is kind of, run it through and go into a lot of detail about it. So I have a bit of a typical opening question I ask where it's relevant that you're up in Syracuse at this point, and it's a bit of a story. And when it lands, you can take it in whatever direction. We'll start talking. Um, so it starts with my girlfriend, and she's doing the dishes one time, and she's got her phone out, and she's playing that Black Eyed Peas song, the I got a feeling, ooh. She's vibing, and she's dancing, and she's washing them dishes, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, hold up. When did this song become chores music, right? Like, when did this song become that stuff that you put on when you're exercising, you're cleaning, you're doing these things when you're a little bit bored in life? When did that song become that? And I say that because I remember vividly 10 years ago, for me, that is like the club anthem. That's that song that comes on in the middle of the night when everybody's drunk, having a wonderful time. And now, just 10 years later, the song, it has not changed at all. But us, we changed so much that this thing is chores music in our lives. And I thought that was crazy how the context and the journey of this song can change so much in relation to who we are as people. And then I started thinking about all the little ones up in the clubs now that they have no idea that the Cardi B's and shit's about to be the chores music of their future. But then it hit me, the Cardi's B's is kind of my chores music still. It's just club music becomes chores music, and I'm like that was just wild for me. It was a huge epiphany, and it got me thinking about like musical journeys, right? Because as artists and whatnot, we go on journeys, and these journeys they don't start where we normally think they start. When you watch interviews and you hear everybody talking about it, everybody runs it back to this adolescent phase. I discovered hip hop when I was 12, and this is my first. And that's when people started, But really, first, the musical journey transcends the individual genre of hip hop and the culture of hip hop. And second, it starts like super way before that. Like when you're like as little as you can be, like probably in the hospital there was music playing when you came out the womb kind of thing. And I can remember, just to kind of like add to that, like being 4 or 5 years old, right? I'm in the apartment, and my dad's got these gray boxes, the fucking amp and the radio and the tape deck, and everything's put together with these wires. Everything's going out to the speakers and such. He's busting out his Led Zeppelin stuffs and things like that. At night, we've got that Montreal 90s techno music straight from the clubs pumping through it. My mom, she's more into like discos and musicals, and her little vibe, well, not as much my favorite, but it was there. At Christmas time, we got this tape, man. It was EDM remixes of Christmas bangers. That was like present opening music. Anyway, all I have to say is like your whole like young life, everything in your life has these memories laced to music, laced to like almost like a soundscape that kind of creates your story. And I'm hoping, Mr. JusOne, that you could run us back to Syracuse as little as you could remember being, and describe a little bit what it sounded like to be you, like this, like what it technologically, just the vibes and stuff when you were as little as you
Yeah,
can
for sure.
remember.
Well, my dad is a musician.
I'll say a word.
So, my dad is a musician. So I grew up around music from the beginning. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I mean, that's really what it is, man. Like my pops is a musician.
What
There's
kind of
really
music?
nothing else. My pops play guitar in like heavy metal rock and roll bands.
Wow, so you're growing up on a whole different tip than a lot of people we've talked to.
Absolutely. Like my dad did tours with like he played with a band called Shaking Street and toured with Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult. And, my,
Okay.
my, my dad was definitely doing his thing.
And when you were like young, were you like, trying to play guitars too? Were you singing and dancing? Were you involved in it?
Uh, I was kind of rocking with the drums when I was little. You know what I mean? Like, we talking, you know, 4 years old type of situation. But then, my mom's and my pop split up when I was 5.
Mm,
So, after that, it was kind of like,
a little less access to the
that was
drums.
that was kind of, yeah, you know what I mean? Definitely. Pops was out. He was a Rolling Stone, doing what he had to do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And and then my mom's, and like I was born in Auburn, New York, so I lived in Auburn until I was 5 years old.
So
Auburn is a small city in upstate. Like I don't even know if you call it a city. I guess maybe small city, real small city.
right.
But then my mom's worked in Syracuse, so we moved to Syracuse as soon as my parents split up. So I was probably 5 years old. Actually, I was 5 years old.
And so,
So totally different environment as well. You know what I mean? Moving from Auburn to Syracuse, New York.
so I guess so. Like going from like a smaller community into, I guess, relatively speaking, Syracuse is pretty big. I actually have no idea how big Syracuse is.
I mean, it's a small city. Syracuse is a small city. It's not a huge city at all. It's definitely a small city. You know what I mean?
Right.
Smaller than Rochester, smaller than Buffalo. You know,
Fair enough. So
but
like,
it's still a decent sized city.
so when you're there, like, I guess, with the shift in that, is your mom into music at all? Like, is she bumping anything around?
I mean, nah. I mean, my mother used to like. She was one of those people that liked everything.
Mm.
So, my mom, she was on her Stevie Nicks, Pat Benatar wave. You know what I mean? But she also, would listen to Patti LaBelle, things of that nature too, as well. You know what I mean? So, my mom was kind of just, she kind of flipped around with the music.
So like, once you get to Syracuse, now you gotta keep in mind, I'm from Montreal, different
Yeah, for sure.
next generation maybe a little bit. I saw you were born in '74, so I'm a little bit younger than
Yes,
you.
sir.
And with that, it's like, what's it like just being a young one in a place like Syracuse growing up? Like, are y'all up in the sports vibe? Like, what kind of a growing up world is that for a little one?
Nah, not really. No, no sports for me. I was never really into sports like that. My really my first memory when I moved into Syracuse is just starting school and going to the center every day after school.
What's the center?
You know what I mean? Like a boys and girls club every day after school. You know what I mean? Because back then we didn't have babysitters. Moms got out of work at 5 o'clock. You went to the boys and girls club until 5 o'clock.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So that's pretty much what I did. So that's how I got the. Plus, it's how you get to know people too really fast. You know what I'm saying? You start school, and then from school, you don't just go home. you go to the Boys and Girls Club with all the other kids whose parents ain't home yet, so they at the Boys and Girls Clubs, playing basketball, doing all that type of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's fresh. So you're basically kind of running that. And are you like invested in music at all when you're young? Like when do you start to
Not at
develop a
all.
bit of
Not at
interest in
all.
it?
I would say, I would say probably, I say when I was about between 7 and 8 years old. Um, because the Boys and Girls Clubs always had, elementary school, and then always had high school students. All the older kids would hang out there too as well. It wasn't just,
Mm.
little kids. You know what I mean? So it would be like elementary kids all the way up to high school kids hanging out at the Boys and Girls Club. You know what I mean? It was the hangout spot in the neighborhood back in those days. And every neighborhood had a Boys and Girls Club. You know what I mean? And those neighborhoods was that's where everybody went. You know what I mean? So definitely just watching some older kids one day, you know what I mean, breakdancing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I wasn't really even paying attention to the music. I just was paying attention to what they was doing. You know what I mean? It was like, what the hell are they doing? You know what I mean? They rolling around on the floor, spinning on their heads, spinning on their backs, doing, I'm like, what the hell? You know what I mean? And and I just started like chilling where they was at and watching them. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And
And this is
after a
like
while,
really early hip hop then, right?
oh yeah, this is super early. I mean, I was like 7, 8 years old, bro. You know what I mean? Um, I couldn't tell you the year exactly. You know what I mean? But if we did the math, I'm sure we could figure it out. But yeah, it's like 7, 8 years old, just
Early 80s, like
watching
81.
these dudes break dance, man, and it just caught my attention. So every day, instead of hanging out with the other kids my age, playing foosball, basketball, kickball, whatever we was doing, I was just watching these kids every day. I would go in there and watch these kids every day do their thing, man. I'm talking about probably for months. And then I would go home and move my mama furniture in the kitchen and try to emulate what I was seeing. You know what I mean?
Yo, that's
And
so cool.
I did that for a while until I felt like I had some of the moves down. And then I just jumped into their little pit, to their little circle, man, started doing my thing.
Yo, you are possibly one of the first people I've talked to that has started with being a b-boy.
Oh, 100%, man. That was the
The
beginning.
fucking coolest, honestly, because
That was the
like,
beginning. And I was nice too. Like I honestly wasn't, I kind of was natural at it. And I just, and that's just what I did, man. I actually got super nice at it when I was a kid.
so you're like eight
So,
eight-ish years old at the very beginning of a lot of this stuff, like starting to branch out into the world. You jump on it, and it's not like rapping. It's not, you're just into the dancing. And are you like getting ingratiated into the culture of it? Like, what's that like?
oh yeah.
What's
I
the
mean,
scene like?
obviously, yeah. Once you started breakdancing, obviously you understand this is what you breakdancing to. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, I'm like, all right, well, I need this music at home. Like I didn't have any tapes or anything like that. At this time, you got to remember, you could not get hip hop
Mm.
nowhere. This was not some. This was not some you going to the record store and buying something, especially in upstate New York. This is definitely wasn't you about to turn the radio on and listen to nothing. You know what I mean? Like it was like I think at that point, I don't even know if it was at that actual point, but somewhere down the line, I realized, oh, you can listen to the radio station on Saturday night for from 7 to 10. You know what I mean? And that was at once a week, and that's was the hip hop that we got. And sometimes it wasn't even pure hip hop. You know what I mean? But that's when you could
What do you mean
get
by
your
like pure hip hop? I
like
don't
it wasn't
always
just
know.
all hip hop. Some of it was like,
Um,
Paula Abdul and, shit like that. You know what I mean? Mixed in with jam on it, jam on it. You know what I'm saying? Mixed in with some of the hip hop shit. So, obviously, I just started learning about all of that shit, man. And if I wanted to have my own version of, I wanted to have the music to replay while I practiced the breakdance, I had to I had to ask my mom for some blank cassette tapes and started making sure I was on that radio between 7 to 10, press and record when I heard a joint that I wanted to come on, and we had to make my little. That's how I had to make my little hip hop tapes, man, so I could practice breakdancing.
Yeah, so cool. What is like, okay, so as you're getting into it, like, is it like battles and competitions? Is it more like a cipher? Like, what's the vibe
Uh,
like when it's a bunch of people in the break dancing circle? Or is it
you know,
b-boy? I don't actually know.
in,
What's the right term?
in the boy, like in the beginning for me, it was just hanging out with the older kids that was rocking out. Um, they I'm sure that they went and did battles and all that stuff outside of the boys and girls clubs and all, because that's what we did later on. But for the first, I don't know, maybe even a year, what I mean, I would just break dance with them at the boys and girls club. You know what I mean? It wasn't until I got a little bit older and started linking up with, other kids in my school or in my neighborhood that was my age, maybe lived down the street, and we started linking up together, and then, you know, and we started forming our little crews, and then we started to realize, oh, we got to have a crew. You know what I mean? Because that's what it was in New York City Breakers. Because now at this time, like on public access TV, you might be able to catch like a program where you see like the New York City Breakers, you know, um, battling, one of the other crews, and you got to see that, and you're like, oh, we got to have a crew name. We
Mm.
got to get a crew together, and then we got to find other crews, and we got to battle them.
What was your first
And
crew name?
oh man, I can't even remember, man.
Man, man,
I can't even remember, man. I wish I could, but I can't even remember.
that's still
But
cool.
no, it was definitely dope, man. And then you get a little bit more older and you start going to the skating range, the little teenager club type of things when you get a little older, and then that's where we would start battling.